Hey, what's going on, everybody? Todd Zilla here with Zilla Fantasy Elite. We are going to get into our Thursday night theory here, and we'll just swing right into it. So, this week we have Tampa Bay at Atlanta. Let's get our full screen view here. We have Atlanta as of this is Wednesday night recording. It's a 44-point Vegas game total, which is bet up from earlier this week. It was at 43.5. We have Atlanta as 1.5-point home favorites, giving them a team implied total of 22.75. Tampa Bay 21.25 team implied total. Getting into the offensive side here, we have Tampa Bay number 26. Let's just zoom right in on this particular matchup. So Tampa Bay offensive pass protection, number 26. Atlanta, 31 in the defensive pass rush. So what does this mean? Offensive pass protection, this is an adjusted sack rate. Same here, adjusted sack rate. So in the red means not very good. They're ranked 26 out of 32 teams. Tampa Bay's offensive pass protection hasn't been very good. Fortunately for them, Atlanta's defensive pass rush also not very good. So this tells me Tampa Bay might be under a little less duress than they're otherwise used to so far in the season. So we might get them with a little bit of extra time to throw the ball. That's good for Baker Mayfield and the pass game. Now getting into the DVOA side, Tampa Bay number 12, Atlanta number 17 here. This is really adjusted for opponent, so it's defensive value over average, if you want to consider it that. So really it's taking into consideration on this play, let's say it's 2nd down and 7, and the second quarter and the game is within 6 points. It says typically on that particular scenario, if you run a pass play, this is the average yards gained or the average play. If you do a run play, this is the average. And were you better or worse or the same of that average? If you're worse, you're going to get a little bit worse of a score. You're going to go below 0, I guess. If you're a little bit better, you're going to get a little bit above. So it's kind of a percentage above or below the average for the NFL in those scenarios throughout the season. And then it's adjusted for the opponent. So if your opponent's really, really good at rush defense and it's 2nd and 3 and the average run play nets 4 yards and you get 5, that's not only a positive compared to average, but you're also doing it against a really good defense, so it's going to count for a little bit more. So that's what DVOA basically is. It adjusts for the defense or the offense that you're playing. In the case of the defense here, it adjusts for the offense that you're playing. And then it says, based off of what we're getting in the NFL this season, is this a better play than usual or a worse play than usual? So in that regards, we have Tampa Bay at number 12, Atlanta at number 17. This is again slightly in the favor of Tampa Bay. This is telling me that their pass game is going to be okay in this particular matchup. They'll probably find themselves with a little bit more time to throw the ball, and that's going to be good in general for everybody in the pass game. On that note, if they got a little bit extra time to throw the ball, it might mean less targets to Rachaad White. He's getting some carries and stuff cut into his playing time right now, so he might be in a void in an island game in that aspect. So getting into the run blocking, Tampa Bay number 14 in offensive run blocking, Atlanta 23rd. Heavily in the favor here of Tampa Bay. That's telling me Tampa Bay should be pretty effective on a play-by-play basis in terms of gaining yards on each individual rush attempt. Then the run DVOA, how are they compared to the average? Like I had been mentioning before for the NFL season, Tampa Bay pretty bad at 24, Atlanta at 20. That's a pretty even matchup. A lot of times in those scenarios, they say studs eat. I don't know if Tampa Bay's necessarily got any running back studs there, but they should gain some positive yards on most of their attempts in terms of getting, better than expected on that particular down and distance. They might struggle a little bit in that regards, but they should gain positive yardage. So that's kind of how that rolls out. I think this is more favorable for Bucky Irving to have maybe a little bit more explosive plays. I think he can overcome this DVOA matchup here versus somebody like Rachaad White. So I'd be attacking the pass game and maybe Bucky Irving in those island game matchups. Let's get into the Atlanta side on the offense. We have them number 32 in offensive pass protection. So Kirk Cousins taking a lot of sacks and perhaps in scenarios where you wouldn't expect it. That's not very good for them, but fortunately, their opponent, Tampa Bay, number 32 in defensive pass rush, they are just not getting sacks. I'm not sure what their pressure rate is. So again, that's different from the adjusted sack rate. The adjusted sack rate is how many times the quarterback's getting sacked or your defense is sacking the quarterback, and it kind of takes into scenarios. So if it's 3rd and 15, that's a little bit less of a positive than it is if it's 2nd and 3 and you get a sack on that play. So this is telling us Tampa Bay probably not going to get any sacks, or they might based off of this offensive line, but Atlanta should have a little bit more time to throw the ball in this than they're otherwise used to, which is good for their offense. That's good for Darnell Mooney. I think he could have a good game here when they have a little bit more time to throw. He's been their deep threat. Kirk Cousins and him do hang out outside of practice. It seems like they're pretty chummy, so I think he looks his way quite often. And then Drake London is getting the largest target share there. Darnell Mooney with the most pass reception yards in the team, but Drake London has the most target volume. So I think those two are in line for solid weeks this week. Keep that in mind. And then Tampa Bay defensive pass DVOA number 13, a little bit above average. Atlanta 19 in offensive pass DVOA, a little bit below average. So might not see super explosive plays, but Atlanta should have time to throw the ball. And if that's the case, Mooney and London, I think, are your best bets for some action. And then on the run blocking side, Atlanta 23 in offensive run blocking. So they're in the bottom 10 there at number 23. That's why they're red. Tampa Bay 16 in stopping the run. So this is telling me Atlanta might have quite a few plays that are stuffed or negative runs, which is unfortunate for them. But in terms of offensive run DVOA, how they're performing compared to the NFL in those given scenarios, are actually pretty good. Number 10, Tampa Bay 17. They do have Vita Vea back, which may have affected the 17 route. He's really good against the run. That could continue here. But really based off of this, if Atlanta's got time to throw, I think Bijan's kind of a fade in terms of the island game matchups. Now, so far this entire season, I have said when people should be faded on these island games, a lot of times they end up having a really good game, which is kind of funny. But this is indicative that, hey, maybe Bijan Robinson might have some decent rush attempts, but if they're able to pass the ball, have plenty of time there, I don't know if he's going to get a ton of targets there. They might go to the more designed routes versus dump offs to him, which you would otherwise expect with a pass protection score of 32. Now let's just hop into the pace of play here. Tampa Bay, one of the slower teams in the league, number 28 in overall pace of play on offense. And then when the situation is neutral, so that's within 8 points of each other, first, second, third quarter, outside of the 2-minute drill in the second quarter, they are the absolute slowest team in the league. And Atlanta is almost the exact opposite. Number 3 in offensive overall pace of play. Number 2 in offensive neutral situation pace of play. So Atlanta runs a lot of plays. That's, again, good for their people. If you want to grab some of those pass catchers because they're going to run more plays than Tampa Bay otherwise looks like they will, that's good. And then you see a blank here, offensive pace of play when leading by 7+. Atlanta hasn't been doing that yet this season, so they're a blank there. Same with their opponents leading by 7. So keep that in mind. But it looks like Atlanta plays fast. Tampa Bay plays slow. Put that into consideration for your island game matchups. But hopefully you learned a little bit in terms of how we attack these particular offensive and defensive line matchups here. This is basically what we're here for with the adjusted line play report, is to give you this info so you can go out there and make better decisions on your start-sit lineups, your prop bets, anything like that, DFS lineups. This stuff is pretty good at doing that. I would say 65-70% of the time. Pretty accurate in determining what the gameplay is going to look like, what players should do well, what players to fade. It's not 100%. If it was, I would be raking in millions of dollars, which I am not currently, but 60-70% is pretty good in the betting game, and I think this is helping you along to get that 70-ish, 60, 70% on your bets, and your start-sit decisions a little bit better. So keep that in mind. It's Thursday night football, Thursday night theory. We're here to teach you kind of how those matchups go and what numbers mean and what to kind of look for when you see certain matchups. And hopefully you learned a little bit, and that's kind of the goal of this particular thing. So go out there, place those bets, place those DFS lineups, make your start-sit decisions. Definitely looks like Atlanta pass game, Tampa Bay pass game, certainly in play. So keep that in mind. Have a good one, folks. Bye.